Hey, Stellan cousin, you already know what time it is. Animated horror stories. Animated horror stories. Let's get up into it. Three true scary apartment horror stories animated. With who? Our great cousins at SSG Animations House. Meaning what? Meaning please go over there and subscribe. And then, yeah, go over there, subscribe, watch some videos, enjoy, live life. Bring your ass back though. You know? Come back and just enjoy life. Back over here though. I just want you to please like the video if you can. And yeah, let's get up into it. Please go grab a blunt, grab a bottle of water, grab a bag of chips, and grab a blanket just in case. You need to be snug. Let's get up in here. Three true scary apartment horror stories animated. Mm.
I'll be honest, I never believed in the paranormal. I always believed that paranormal videos were made by people pulling strings behind the camera, Photoshop, or video editing. I always said I would believe in the paranormal if I saw something that convinced me.
You said that off
I
yourself?
never thought I would regret anything so much in my life.
Why would you say
It
that?
all started when my daughter moved into my apartment. I had recently moved out as I had separated from my wife and she had taken the house. She was on vacation, so I was going to take care of Amy for 2 weeks. Amy and I had always been very close, and we were both looking forward to spending
Okay,
this
little
time
cousin,
together.
hi.
It was going to be a great 2 weeks with just the two of us together. I never imagined there would be 3 of us. The first 2 days, nothing out of the ordinary had happened. But on the third day, Amy was behaving strangely. She was playing and talking to someone in her room. When I went over to ask her who she was talking to, she told
I feel so bad for my kids because y'all can't have no imaginary friends. If y'all see this in the future, this is why y'all can't have no imaginary friends because kids be out here talking to demons and spirits. Sometimes it be spirits, but sometimes it be demons. And I don't need that, none of that in my house. So you and your belongings gotta go to not even grandma's house because that's my mama and I gotta go over there because she do my hair. So I'm sorry. We will find you the best home possible. The best home. But it's just not mine
me she was playing with Vincent.
at all. Vincent.
I never imagined her as the type of girl who would have an imaginary friend, but it's not something that bothered me. I let her keep playing. What's the worst that could happen? As the days went by, Amy became more and more distant from me. She didn't treat me badly or seem angry, but she was very distracted by her imaginary friend. She spent all day talking to Vincent, so much that I was starting to worry, and that worry would grow even more when it was time to eat. Amy asked me to put 3 plates on the table instead of 2, and I hesitantly agreed. She also asked me to cook something else, since Vincent didn't like macaroni and cheese. And that's when I decided to draw the line. I told Amy that Vincent had to eat what I had known. But just so I wouldn't be too cruel to her, I served her imaginary friend a plate of food. I went to get the drink from the fridge, but suddenly, a plate full of macaroni flew next to me, smashing into the wall next to the fridge. When I turned around, furious, I saw that Vincent's plate was gone. I got very angry with Amy, but she told me that she had nothing to do with what happened, that it was Vincent. Angry, she challenged her imaginary friend, which made me even angrier. Despite my anger, I decided not to say anything to her. I would have a talk with her, but since she had been with me so long ago, I preferred to be more permissive. The next day was Friday, and I had promised Amy that I would take her to the video games during the night. I went shopping for just a few minutes. She was taking a nap and could definitely take care of herself for a few minutes. When I came back, I couldn't believe what I saw.
What do you mean?
The kitchen was destroyed. All the dishes were destroyed. The chairs on the floor and the cutlery scattered everywhere. Furious, I yelled for the first time to Amy. She again told me it wasn't her fault. It was her imaginary friend.
You left her at the house
I was
by
furious
herself,
and sent her to
then the
bed
house got
without
fucked
going
up?
to the games. She, between furious and sad, locked herself in her room to cry. Minutes later, I felt really bad about what I had done. I had never yelled at Amy like that, and I didn't want to start right now.
Well, it's all right.
I was thinking about going to her room and forgiving her. I was sure she had learned her lesson. Before going to her, I checked the security cameras in the kitchen. It's not that if I doubted the imaginary friend was true, I just wanted to show the footage to Amy so she would understand not to lie to me. What I didn't know was that she really wasn't lying to me. As I watched the footage, I didn't see Amy. The kitchen was destroying itself. It was as if something invisible was taking out my entire kitchen, destroying it bit by bit with indescribable force. I ran to the kitchen. I needed to see everything again. As I did, I realized that this could not have been Amy's doing. The chairs were broken, and some of the dishes from very high places were on the floor.
Don't do that now.
There's no way Amy could have gotten there, not even by climbing on a chair. As I was going through everything, I found a strange photo on the floor, and I bent down to pick it up.
Who's that?
In that photo was a terrifying 6-foot-tall man. Next to him, there was a frightened-looking woman, and in the middle, a little boy. A frightened little boy. Behind the photo, someone had written something by hand. Family photo. Alfonso, Maria, and Vincent.
Okay, but which one
Could it
is
be
Vincent? Is it the grown man or
that
the
child
little
was
boy?
Vincent? I went to Amy's room
okay.
and showed her the photo without telling her my suspicions. But she just spoke.
Oh, you found Vincent's picture.
It was true. That boy was Vincent.
Yeah,
This
I'm
couldn't be
sorry,
true.
you can't
There
be
had to
with
be a
me.
logical
Can't be friends with
explanation.
My baby.
But
Got my
that video-
anxiety going off.
I had no way of denying that this was happening. Trying to understand a little more, I tried to get some information out of Amy. But I never would have expected her to tell me what she told me. Sweetie, what does your little friend want? What did he tell you?
He just want to play.
No, but he just told me something.
Is he here with you right now?
Hey,
Yes,
Hey, what's the matter? What did he say?
he said you ask a lot of questions. He said he wants to hurt you.
Oh no!
He's saying a lot of bad words to you. He's very angry.
Oh, because
Tell
I
your
ain't
friend to
make-
calm down.
I
I won't hurt him.
didn't make another
You
dinner.
should stop calling him little. I don't think he likes it. He's very, very tall.
Confused, I showed her the picture again and pointed to the child. Didn't you just say that this is
What
Vincent?
I say?
Startled, she grabbed my finger and wagged it
What
up,
did I say?
pointing to the terrifying 6-foot man behind him.
No, this is Vincent.
What did I say?
My blood
you gotta,
froze.
You gotta ask her
Almost
which
at the same
one.
time, I began to feel something behind me. It was air. It was a breath. Someone was breathing on the back of my neck.
Oh no!
Daddy, I'm scared.
All this time, the imaginary friend,
Was a grown
Was
ass
real.
man.
but he wasn't a child, but a
A
terrifying,
grown
nearly
ass
6-foot tall
demon.
grown man.
Yeah,
I had
bigger
no
than
idea
you,
what was going
ready to
on,
tear your
but I
ass
knew
up.
we had to escape from there.
All this
I
'cause
ran to
you
the
don't
door to
like
get out of the
macaroni,
kitchen.
My guy, get the
My
fuck
daughter
out of my
was standing
house.
behind him, but the door slammed in my face.
No, give me my
Suddenly,
head.
All the stuff in the kitchen
Hey!
started flying at me,
Oh, you know what?
hurting
I'm
me
mad you
as I
beat
tried
her.
to force the door open. I pushed as hard as I could until I managed to break it.
Okay, where's
Amy
she at?
was standing there, crying.
Come here.
I pulled her into my arms and ran as fast as I could. I reached the exit door,
Drop her off at her
and as I
mama
reached
house.
for the key and opened the door, something behind us approached.
Grab
It was
you?
like a distortion in the air that was slowly approaching us, breaking everything in its path.
Go.
I managed to open the exit door and ran with my daughter.
Period.
We went down the stairs without waiting for the elevator. All the lights behind us were going out.
Oh
The
no.
light bulbs were breaking, and even though there was no one behind us, we heard violent and loud footsteps
Oh no.
that were getting closer and closer.
All
We
this
opened the
'cause I
exit
didn't make
door
you
and
another
ran as
dinner,
fast
my
as we
guy.
could
Eat
to
the
my car.
macaroni. You're
Behind
dead.
us, at the apartment doors, I caught my first glimpse of a man standing in the doorway.
Ew.
The man had a terrifying smile and cruel red eyes. The rest of his face was sunk in a black shadow, and from one second to the next, he disappeared. That was the last time I went back to that apartment.
As you should.
I went to my ex-wife's house while she was on vacation and looked for a new place to move to. I hired several people to move everything out of that apartment.
Good shit.
I never had an explanation for what was happening, but at least I had the video of what
demon.
happened in the kitchen
You don't know
to
what
prove
happened?
that it was real.
Man probably died up in
Unfortunately,
there and his spirit
no
was
one ever
stuck.
believed me. With so many fake videos on the internet, I can't blame them either.
That's neither here nor there. I'm sorry.
Back when I lived in New York, I lived in an apartment with 3 other guys. All of us were working professionals, and our home was nothing short of a bachelor's pad. However, we all made sure to keep it as clean as possible. But it
I
was
was just about to say it probably stank. A whole room with whole apartment with 3 men.
all of us were working professionals, and our home was nothing short of a bachelor's pad. However, we all made sure to keep it as clean as possible. But it was tough to always keep the place immaculate, given our busy schedules. So we all found a middle ground by sharing chores.
Okay.
I didn't mind doing laundry. One of the other guys, Joseph, loved to cook. That left Max with the cleaning duties. His job was to sweep and mop the apartment once in a while and wash all the utensils. Although we weren't the best of friends, we had a good relationship. We often went out for dinners and drinks, watched sports together, and always helped each other pick up the slack around the house. However, there was something unusual about this apartment. Many times when one of us was alone in the apartment, we had seen a shadow of a woman. It wasn't scary or anything, but the female shadow could be spotted in various corners from time to time. I'd always been a little scared of all such supernatural things, so I just ignored the presence for the most part. But if it was too persistent, I just went into another room. The three of us often discussed this entity, but Joseph and I were never too affected by this woman. However, Max often had nightmares. He used to wake up sweaty, tired, and sometimes screaming. Joseph and I tried to make him feel better, but nothing changed. Max had nightmares about this dark female entity a couple of nights every week. However, moving into a new apartment wasn't an option as our current apartment had cheap rent. We couldn't afford to move out. His dreams always included this female entity sitting on his chest and choking him.
Oh, wow.
He could never see her face other than big white eyes. I often thought he was experiencing sleep paralysis, but after visiting the doctor, it was quickly ruled out.
The doctor said no?
There was one more unique thing that used to happen in our apartment.
You just haunted.
Max preferred doing the dishes either in the morning or late at night, but many times the dishes used to be washed. We all knew that none of us were doing the dishes, so we quickly deduced that probably the poltergeist was doing this.
No.
However, as the days passed, many of Max's trivial tasks around the house were complete without any one of us doing them. It soon became a standing joke in our apartment. We often commented, saying that we would love the help of the poltergeist too, but that never happened. However, as the days passed, we could see the entity affecting Max, but we were helpless. That's when Max's mother got to know about this thing. Max's mom was a unique woman. She was strong-willed and a positive person. We had met her a few times when she came to visit Max in New York.
My mom everything.
She had told Max to leave the job and come back home.
Period.
Joseph and I supported this decision as Max had become borderline crazy. So instead of just being jobless at home, he started looking for a new job. Given his experience, he found a new job in Houston, his hometown. He was on a notice period in his current job. Joseph and I were helping him pack his things for the big move back home. Even though Max loved being in New York, it was best for his mental health that he returned back home, away from this entity. Only a week before his flight back to Houston, Max feels violently ill. He had a high fever and was vomiting blood. Joe and I took him to the doctor, but after doing the checkups and running tests, they found nothing. On a physical level, Max was okay, so they gave him some medication and sent him back home. However, the fever did not subside and his puking continued. He couldn't eat, let alone drink. Joe and I were trying our best, but we were seeing this dark entity more frequently than normal. She was always there, and we could see her in the corner of our eyes. We knew for sure that she was affecting Max. 2 days before his flight, Max got up yelling in the morning. But this time it wasn't a nightmare because we knew he had barely slept but for a couple of hours. He told us to turn him flat on his belly, and when we did that, we saw 3 long red scratches on his back, like a wild dog had scratched him. We knew that this wasn't a medical emergency, rather, we needed a totally different kind of help.
Exactly.
So not knowing what to do, I called Max's mom while Joe took care of Max's wounds. Max's mom was a very religious woman. She contacted her church's priest and narrated the whole story.
What I say?
The priest said that the spirit belonged to a woman who had died in the apartment many years ago. She had many unfinished wishes, which she was trying to fulfill through Max.
No, don't
Honestly,
do that.
I didn't understand much of that.
Alone.
But what the priest said at the end has been etched in my brain forever.
What did he say?
He told us that in order to free Max from the grasp of the spirit, it was essential to get him out of that apartment.
That's what I
Not only
said.
is the spirit attached to Max, but it was attached to the apartment, too.
Oh, that's crazy.
He said it would be forced to let go of Max if he moved out. But
That's
the
why his
entity
mama told him
will
to
make
go
it very
home.
difficult for Max to leave the place. So, all we have to do is get Max well enough to get on the flight. Even though I wasn't a religious person, I prayed for those 2 days to be well. Finally, on the morning of his flight, he was okay. He still had a bit of a temperature, but he was well enough to travel. Joe and I dropped him off at the airport and left only when his flight departed. But that wasn't the worst part.
When y'all got back.
The moment we returned back to the apartment, everything was destroyed. Most of the electronics were broken, and our things were either on the floor or
Don't
just
be up in my
flat
house
out
breaking my
destroyed.
shit up, girl.
We didn't need to guess who had done this, but this was too much for us to take. The entity had harassed Max enough that he was forced to leave New York. Joe and I knew that now that Max was gone, one of us could be the next target of this entity.
Hey.
So we started to look for new apartments. In a few days, we found a new apartment and we moved into it quickly, leaving the haunted place
A few
behind.
days. That's the fastest I've
A
heard
few
of
years
someone finding an
ago, I
apartment.
heard that a tenant living in that apartment hung
Died?
herself.
Oh,
She was a teenage girl, and I instantly knew what could have happened. Somehow, I feel lucky that we moved out of the apartment in time. And to date, Joe, Max, and I joke about the poltergeist that haunted our apartment.
don't joke about
And we
her.
still joke about how the entity used to do Max's chores. None of us could ever understand why, though.
Cause she was taking over his body. Of course you're gonna clean up his shit.
It's perfect. Those were the words that came out of my mouth after I had been shown the tour of my new apartment. I was 22 at the time, and I was going to college in the city. Like most big cities, finding a good apartment seemed impossible, as I had been searching for months, and it wasn't till the last week of the 4th month that I found something I really liked. To be honest, I was shocked no one had snatched it up already. It had a spacious living room,
Hey,
a usable
there's a
kitchen,
reason.
enough bathrooms, and a perfect bedroom. I loved everything about it. Well, almost everything.
Yo, don't be
The air in the
questioning
apartment
why
was a
ain't
bit
got
thick.
Nobody up in there.
And this was because of the numerous perfumed air fresheners that were situated all over the apartment.
Body.
I didn't know why the place needed that many air fresheners, but it was the only mandatory thing that my landlord, Mr. Terrence, asked for. My opinions on my landlord, Mr. Terrence, were pretty normal. He was an awkward but quiet guy, which was a bit weird to me as he had a really huge build, so his character didn't match his appearance. As he stood in the apartment with me, Mr. Terrence looked at me and said, "So that's it, Nathan. Remember to leave the air fresheners on every day, in addition to spray a new can in the living room every morning before you leave." He then handed me a box filled with new air fresheners.
Why is it this
The obsession
thing
with
up
the
in
perfumed air fresheners was a bit weird to me, but I didn't say a word, seeing as he offered this apartment to me for a very low price.
here?
To
Why?
be honest, the low price was another thing that was odd to me, as the apartment was a bit on the fancier side and it clearly cost more than that. So I was really shocked when he immediately agreed to let me live there for the low rent fee that I could offer. And I could recall that during our first meeting, it really seemed like he just wanted someone to live there. But I wasn't complaining because
He just
I saw it as a huge win for me,
Killing
and after
folks.
settling in, I slept happily that night in my new apartment. So it had been a couple
Wow.
of weeks since I moved
It
into
was
the new
stinking.
apartment, and while I still loved the place, I noticed a couple of strange things that were going on. For starters, I noticed that the other tenant who lived in the building actively avoided my apartment like a plague.
'Cause it
I
smells
remember
like
spending
shit.
days wondering
Ain't
why
nobody
they
wanna
did that.
be walking by no
At
shitty
first,
ass smelling
I
apartment.
thought they were just jealous of my place. But as time went by, I realized that it wasn't jealousy. These people were truly terrified of my apartment, and the look of fear on their faces every time they crossed the hall said
It's
it all.
haunted?
Due to this strange behavior, the only people who visited my apartment were my friends from college. On one particular day when I was coming back home, I overheard some of the tenants talking about my place, and through the course of the conversation, I heard them call it the cursed apartment.
Mm.
Now, I wasn't one to believe petty gossip, but I would be lying if I said the strange rumors didn't worry me. That night, I went to bed trying to get some sleep, but I kept thinking about what I heard earlier. So in order to get more comfortable, I turned in my bed to assume a better sleeping position. But as I was turning, out of the corner of my eye, I could see the silhouette of a huge man leaning
Hell
over me.
no.
The terrifying sight made my heart skip as I tried my best to muffle a scream. From the slight glimpse, I could tell the man was a lot bigger than me, so a direct confrontation would surely end badly for me. But I also
Would
knew
it though? You
that
better
lying
hit him with a
still and
lamp or
pretending to sleep
something.
wasn't a smart idea, as the intruder was bound to attack sooner or later. So I planned out the last best option in my head, and I put it into action. With no hesitation, I threw my blanket towards the intruder. Stunned that I was awake, he made an attempt to grab me, but the blanket I threw at him bought me some time, and within seconds, I ran at full speed towards my bathroom. Once I was safely inside, I locked the door and called the cops, screaming. While the cops were on their way, I listened at the door to see if the intruder was making his move, but all I heard was silence. I assumed it was a play made by the intruder to make me lower my guard, so I stayed in the bathroom till the cops arrived. When the cops arrived, they searched the apartment before letting me out of the bathroom. I was then asked a couple of questions, and I told them everything they needed to know. But after looking around and carrying out a small investigation, the cops began to doubt my claim as the head officer asked me, "Are you sure you saw someone in here? Because from the look of things, it really seems like no one apart from you was here." Confused,
Boy,
I said,
Don't play with me.
"But I'm sure I saw someone watching me while I was sleeping. He also attempted to attack me."
'Cause I
The
did
officer
see it.
then looked at me and said, "Well, we checked the door and there was no signs of breaking and entering." Baffled at his statement,
Then it's the
I didn't know what else
landlord.
to say. As if there weren't any
You don't know
signs
how
of
to
breaking
accuse
in,
people the right way.
I didn't have any proof apart from my word. The officer saw I was
They
having
gotta
a hard
be
time
somebody.
making sense of things, so he said, "Look, kid, I know you are confused right now, but I heard it's finals week, so maybe the pressures of the exam is getting to you and making you see things.
No.
Trust me, college finals can do that to a man."
Make
The other
them see
officers
bodies?
laughed at his joke, but I didn't.
Like,
I was still in
exactly,
shock,
ain't shit
and
funny.
I wasn't in the mood to laugh.
At all.
The cops left after a
This ain't
while,
shit
and they told me
funny.
to be sure that there was someone before I called the next time. The week that followed after that
That
incident
ain't
was
funny
horrible,
either.
as I couldn't sleep well
Let's
and I
be
was
honest.
jumping at the sound of every little thing. Soon the rumors of the apartment being cursed started to seem true to me, and I eventually couldn't take it anymore. So the next day, I went across the hall and begged my neighbor, older Lady Grace, to tell me why my apartment was the subject of many rumors and if those rumors were true. When we had settled in her apartment, she told me a morbid tale about how, for the past 12 years, all 8 tenants who have lived in my apartment had mysteriously disappeared.
Mm.
She said that back-to-back disappearances had caused quite a stir in the neighborhood, and people started getting anxious. But even with all the tension, it was only the people who lived in my apartment who went missing. She then said the cops had opened up numerous missing persons cases due to the rising number of grieving families, but the bodies of all 8 tenants were never found. She then added that Mr. Terrence, my landlord, was always questioned after every one of his tenants had gone missing, but he always proved he had nothing to do with it, and he always walked free. As she spoke about Mr. Terrence, I noticed she had a bit of anger in her voice, so I asked, "Hey, I know this is a bit forward, Miss Grace, but do you have anything against my landlord, Terrence?" The old woman then looked at me and said, "No, I have no problems with him, but there's something about that man. You're young, so you won't understand, but I can see things, and something isn't right with him."
I
Her words
understand.
struck me as I left her
I believe
apartment.
all old
I told
grannies
myself that I really
and
didn't
all
find
old
anything
grandpas
wrong with my landlord, Terrence. Apart from the incessant use of air fresheners, he
They
seemed
can tell
like
me
a
anything I need
nice
to know
man,
about
but
somebody, and I'll
even
believe it.
then, I wasn't going to
Spooky,
take any
spooky, and
chances. That night, I stayed up doing research on the cases, and I found out everything that old Lady Gray said was true. So I made up my mind to move. I started making preparations to move the next day. I managed to get a place to stay as one of my friends allowed me to stay with him until I found another place. To avoid any problems, I decided not to tell Mr. Terrence that I was moving till the next morning when I was ready to leave. I can't really remember, but I'm guessing it was due to the abrupt moving process, as I forgot to put on or spray the air fresheners that morning. I spent the whole day at my friend's house, setting up my things, and after a long day's work, I went back home knowing it'd be the last night I'd spend in the strange apartment. But when I got home, a truly morbid and rancid smell filled my nostrils. It was so bad that I found it hard to breathe. I rushed to open a window or get a can of air fresheners when the words, "So I heard you're moving," made me
Who
freeze.
said that? Ain't nobody say
I
that
slowly
to
turned
you?
around to see who said the sentence, and standing there in the dark was my landlord, Mr. Terrence. Fear filled me as I
Get
started
your
to
ass
stutter the
out.
words. What are you doing here,
I
Mr.
can't even
Terrence?"
see in the dark, so I
Totally
wouldn't
ignoring my
really-
question, he said,
I would have been like,
"Why
what?
didn't you tell me you were moving? Were you just going to leave?" I then slowly answered him with,
Boy, I
"I
paid
was
your
going to
rent
tell
already.
you in the morning, Mr. Terrence." My landlord then looked at me and said, "Why are you leaving?
Because it smells like
Because of
shit up
some
in here.
false rumors that you heard? You'd be a fool to give up this apartment after I basically let you live here for a non-existent price."
Well,
It was
that's your
dark,
fault,
and I couldn't
not
see
mine.
Mr. Terrence's face, but I could hear the rising anger in his voice, so I said, "You're scaring me now, Mr. Terrence, and I think you need to leave." He ignored my statement again before proceeding to say something that I wasn't expecting.
What you
As
said?
Terrence looked at me, dead in the eyes, he said in a calm voice, "Do you collect anything, Nathan?" Stunned at the totally irrelevant question, I
Get
didn't know
out of
what to
there,
say.
Nathan.
but before I could answer
'Cause
the
you about
question,
to
he
die.
said, "Well, I
Be
do.
collecting
You
bodies.
see, Nathan, I collect these things called
Bodies.
human beings.
Yep.
To be honest,
Mm-mm.
I currently have 8 in my collection, and I'm looking to increase that number to 9 by the end of this night." It took me a while for my mind to register the horrifying statement that my landlord
It
had
don't take
just
that
made.
long for you to
But before I could
for you to
react,
realize
he
they can
lunged
try
at
to
me
kill
with
you.
his fist in the air.
Oh, dodge it.
Within seconds,
Bow.
he was in front of me, but I managed to dodge the dangerous punch. His hand went through the drywall, and the wall pieces went flying
Oh,
through the air.
no.
Frustrated, he pulled his hand out of the wall, and for a split second, everything clicked as I had a horrible realization about
Big
Mr. Terrence's
beat
collectibles.
ass.
It was dark, but there was no mistaking it.
Oh,
Staring
no.
right at me was a rotting corpse situated
the
in the wall
eyeball.
of my apartment. My mind started unraveling at the ghastly sight, but I didn't stop because I
out
knew
of
if I
there.
didn't do something quickly, I would soon join his collection inside the walls. Mr.
That
Terrence
low-key
was
look
free
like
now,
your eyeball.
and as he saw my pale face, he said, "I see you've seen where I keep my wonderful collectibles. Don't worry.
That's why it smell like
You'll
that up in
soon
here?
get a fine addition." I rushed for the door, but I wasn't quick enough as he managed to tackle me into a table. The contents of the table spilled over as we fell to the floor struggling. I fought back with all of my strength, but it was
Please,
hopeless
you
as
better
he was
start
2 times
fighting.
bigger than me. And it didn't take long before he had his arms wrapped
Choking
around
the
my
shit
neck.
out you.
I don't know if you've ever been strangled before, but there aren't enough words to describe how painful it is. I couldn't breathe as I felt him put his whole weight down on my neck.
Oh, God.
I gasped for air as the world around me began to dim. I thrashed and struggled to look for something, anything that I could use to defend myself, and I was about to give up before I felt it. One of my hands thrashing had managed to get a hold of an air freshener can.
Bust his
It must
ass in
have
the
been
head
one of
with
the
it.
cans that fell when we collided into the table. I knew the can wasn't strong enough to knock him out, so I decided to temporarily blind him. With no hesitation, I picked up the can and sprayed it in his eyes. He screamed and reached for his eyes as he finally let
That's
go
all
of my
you
neck.
can do.
I then struck his head with the can before rushing to the door, and as I opened it, I ran into the arms of numerous cops that had just arrived.
Good
I would
shit,
later find out
Granny.
Old Lady Grace had heard the noises from my apartment, so she called the cops. I don't know if it was from the fighting or the fear, but I passed out there, happy that I had survived the cursed apartment. After that incident, numerous things surrounding the apartment were revealed. Mr. Terrence was arrested, and after his apartment was searched and tore down, over 8 badly preserved corpses were found in the walls, and each and every one of them was identified as the bodies of his former tenants.
That's crazy.
After interrogations, Mr. Terrence also confessed to watching his tenants, potential victims, when they slept. He also went into details about how he got the preserved bodies into the walls, as he said he managed to do it all under the ruse of remodeling the apartment. He then finally confessed to keeping a spare key to the apartment, a key that was unknown to his residents. The families of the victims called for him to be put to death, but he was instead sentenced to life imprisonment. After the whole case had been settled, I moved back to the suburbs with my family. I didn't finish college as I was told I needed time to heal from the traumatizing event. Even after all this time, the therapy still doesn't work, as there's nothing anyone can tell me to make me get over the fact that I slept in a room filled with 8 corpses for over 4 months. But on the bright side, I left the morbid experience with a lesson, as I realized that it's not only people that have stories. Places, too, always have a tale to tell.
And they do.
And those tales should be important to anyone who is deciding to live or stay in those places. Because the knowledge of those tales may one day save or end your life.
Anyone? Y'all just be moving up into anywhere, any and everywhere. That pen be having me choke up. Well, I enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Your Tay Terrence was in my Twitch live. I stream live here and there. You can always join me at Elephant Chatting, and we can chat real time. So again, please let me know what you feel in the comments. I enjoyed this one because you never know what be happening in a random apartment you just move into. If you get it at dumb cheap, something happened. There's a reason you got it for $2. You know, ask them why. Look up the history. Look it up real quick before you just move up in there. Okay? If your kid got an imaginary friend, she's probably haunted. He's probably haunted. You know? Go to a church, go to a priest. You know, go somewhere. And yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Please, please, please like the video. And until next time, you guys, I love you. Bye.